And it's a crusher. It kills me, to know that we're not going to be able to go to Indy and extend this thing from that standpoint. That being said, I think we will play in the postseason.
There you go. Fred saying the play in the NIT. Nebraska 17-14 on the year. Is that what it is? 17-12,
17-14.
17-14. They have won 5 games in the last 2 months after starting 12-2. So Nebraska basketball has lost so many close games. It's been really tough on this team. It seems like made threes at the buzzer. You had that against Minnesota. The heartbreaking loss, no matter what you're talking about, Ohio State or Michigan at home. And that's really the difference. The games at home, I think, this year for Nebraska, they were 10-0 in the league last year. I think they've lost 5 in the league this year. That's probably your difference.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, at the end of the day, we were talking a little bit about this prior to coming on the air, but like Juwan Gary is the epitome of a guy I want on my favorite team. He doesn't have the most talent. He's got talent, just not the most. But he has an effort and a drive.
Yeah,
and there's nights that he's off, but when he's off, he still has the effort. He still has the desire, the passion. Like he bleeds for this program. He deserved better.
Yep.
He deserved better from teammates. He deserved better from the coaching staff. He deserved better from the karma that is affecting somehow, some way Nebraska basketball.
He was up there with Fred Hoiberg after today's game. Nebraska falls to Iowa home 83-68. Before the game, Fred talking about both Bryce and Juwan. There you go.
Yeah, me.
Yeah,
one of my all-time favorite Husker. Love Pike, but my all-time favorite because he's more my size and would basically every three-pointer he took was almost a set shot. But Kerry Cohorn. But Juwan is one of he's number 2 right now.
Of your favorites.
Favorites of all time.
He's up there for me. I don't think he's among the best of all time.
I'm talking favorites, not best.
Fan favorites, sure. He's way up there. Bryce, I think, is the best player of the last 20 years for Nebraska basketball.
Alex Marich and then Bryce. Honestly, you can make an argument.
In Tuesday's game, he almost won that Ohio State game. Would have won it if he makes the free throw in that game. But played out of his mind, as you mentioned, broke Eric Piatkowski's record from 1994. It stood for 31 years, 43. If he would have had 44, Nebraska probably wins that game. But it's the most points, 43 points, since 2019. Luke Garza did that in a game versus Michigan. So both Juwan and Bryce, I mean, replacing Juwan's leadership, probably impossible. Replacing Bryce's scoring next year, probably impossible. But this was a team that was really greater than the sum of its parts. And they're going to continue to play. They're going to play in the NIT. They're not making the NCAA tournament. They're not even making the Big Ten tournament. They had to win today to beat Iowa to make the Big Ten tournament. So they're out of both tournaments. They needed to probably win today and win 2 in the Big Ten tournament to get into the NCAA tournament.
I think if they won today and won 1, I think they would have been in. They would have been in a play-in game. At moot point now, who cares? Yeah. They choked again.
Jesus, I don't think they choked.
They choked effort-wise.
Well, and Fred brought that up because Robin Washut asked him that question.
Not all of them either.
Do you think the team played with a sense of urgency today? This is what Fred said. The Sanford brothers were really good today. Peyton Sanford, 22. His brother Bryce had 16 off the bench in Iowa's win. The loss means Nebraska obviously not going to the NCAA tournament again, probably headed to the NIT. And Fred did say that if they get the invitation, they're going to go, and they're going to go. They're going to go to the NIT. Does that excite you?
No, not in any capacity.
Will you watch?
I don't care. No, I won't watch.
I can't say that
I'm done with this team. I don't know what the cancer is in the locker room. I don't know what the problem is with the team. I like Fred. I think Fred is a good coach. I think his son is when the son is the only one on the team that plays with that fire, grit, determination outside of Juwan Gary, game in, game out. I got a problem with the team. I'm done with this team.
I'm not done with this team. I'll probably watch. I won't be very excited to watch Nebraska play in the NIT. And I do think what Fred said is true. When the ball doesn't go in, and it didn't go in today, they were 6 of 27 from three-point range, 22%. They shot 34% overall after being red hot against Ohio State. A lot of that, of course, was Bryce Williams. But I think that just happens to a team. It happened definitely to Connor Essegian today. He was 0 of 8 from 3. He was 0 for 11 overall. He had his worst game as a Husker.
Pressure's on. Okay, Connor Colt, Big Ten Kicker of the Year 2020. Nobody in the stands, no pressure. He's Big Ten Kicker of the Year. Come in the next year, there's actually a crowd, and he's the worst kicker in the history of the Big Ten. If there's any pressure at all, find me a game that you've seen Connor Essegian step up and make some shots. He could have won the game against Michigan. He did. He could have hit 1-3 at some point today in the biggest game of the season. He didn't. Like I said, I'm done with this team. This is a complete and utter failure in the locker room from the supporting cast.
I'm mad, but I love these guys. And Fred mentioned that he loves these guys. I think it's just a team that lacks shooters. Connor Essegian didn't have a good sophomore year, had a great freshman year at Wisconsin, had parts of a very good year this year, and then the last 2 months he's been very inconsistent.
When it's been time to step up and play your best basketball.
But this has been a team really built around two guys, and if they're hot, if they give you 40 combined, you're probably going to win.
Well, that's what sucks is like the two guys that like you're like, okay, now Rink coming back would have been a huge difference, but he's coming back next. I get it, but he's got to take care of that knee. So him not being in this lineup this year hurt them. I get that, but and you and I talked about this before the show. They need to find someone who can get some talent in this program. Not role players that if they don't play their role, they're a detriment to the team.
Right.
If they don't play their role, they still are able to contribute.
I think they need a GM.
Yeah.
And they had Matt Abdelmassi.
And a talent evaluator.
Matt Abdelmassi didn't work out. He worked out really well for Fred at Iowa State. But when Fred was getting transfers at Iowa State, he was one of the very first coaches in the country to go all in on the transfer portal. It was pretty new. And you kind of got your pick of the litter. And a lot of coaches didn't buy into that because they thought, how are you going to assemble a team with all these faces? But he got the best faces in the country out of the portal.
And 10 years later, that's literally the world we live in.
That's really, that's where we live.
Yeah.
And it's worked out at times, like last year for Nebraska. But you look back at last year, it is so much more fun when a team makes shots. And it adds to your defensive energy. And when you shoot 6 of 27 or whatever it was today, 22% from 3, I don't care how much energy you think you have. And it's, dive for every ball and play to the last second. When you shoot like that, the energy just disappears. And it has at times. At times it didn't this year. Times they
shot about the same against Michigan.
Right.
Yet they were in it till the end, and all they needed to do is hit one wide open three with their best three-point shooter, and he barely hit the rim.
Well, we'll get to a lot of this Nebraska basketball falling today, and their hopes for the NCAA tournament are over.
Let me ask you this. I'm looking at the roster. I think there's 7 seniors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are not going to come back. There's no chance. Rick Mast is back.
Right.
Okay. Potentially Connor Essegian, Sam Hoiberg,
Burke,
Braden Frager, Burke, Gavin Griffiths, Justin Bolus, Nick Janowski.
They're going to need at least 7 from the portal. At least.
So I mean, Cale Jacobson came in and gave some positive minutes at times this year, but he's not a guy that's going to be in a rotation.
No.
Let's face it. If he's in a rotation, we're not very good. He's a great kid.
Yeah.
Especially off the court and as a human being, he's a great kid.
Rink, Connor, and Burke are your 3. Those are the guys with experience.
Here's my question: which one of those, or which do you want all three back, or would you rather just roll with Rink and Sam Hoiberg?
I want them all back. You need depth. I think if anything, it's even if they don't start. If all three of them don't start, I expect them to be a year better. They have experience. Their term that they would be a team that's played in the postseason tournament, even if it is the NIT. They're a team that's had success. Sure. Yeah, you're losing Bryce. You're losing Jawan, the two best players in Nebraska basketball for years and years and years. But at least it's something to build around. And I think that if last year proved anything for me, it was like I was okay with CJ leaving at the time. I would really like to have had CJ back. Or Jamarcus Lawrence. Yeah. I was okay with him leaving at the time. I would really have him back. Nebraska, the last 1 or 2 years, I think if anything has hurt them, it's the inability to find a point guard. Raleigh Worst, I think Raleigh can handle it. They can't shoot it. And they've had too many guys that have struggled in general to shoot basketball. And Fred's offenses are built on spacing. If you can have 3 or 4 guys that can shoot it, then you can do anything. Last year they had that. They had the ultimate shooter in Casey, but they also had CJ. They had Jamarcus who could shoot it. Rink could shoot it. They had Josiah Alec was a pretty good shooter at times. They just had so many options that it was the floor spacing was really, really good. They weren't as good defensively probably as this team, although this team has disappeared at times on the defensive end. But we'll get to more Husker basketball talk. Bo Reed will be on the show. We've got Mitch Sherman of The Athletic and Locked On Nebraska, the Locked On Nebraska podcast with his partner, my old partner, Connor Happer, on the show. And then in hour 2, Steve Sipple will be with us. Right now, it's the opening kickoff.
Hey, Missouri fans, the game's not over.
We were watching that game together. Do you remember that?
Yeah. We were in my living room.
Yeah, I remember
on East Street.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, we lost our minds collectively. Yeah. I'm surprised the big, massive window in the front didn't get destroyed from us screaming and yelling and throwing stuff.
That was a party.
It's kickoff today is going to be kind of short and sweet. Basketball lost 83-68 and a hapless, worrisome defensive effort. And offensive effort from 3 especially. Nebraska finishes the regular season 17-14, 7-13 in conference. They've lost 6 in a row for the second time this year. Fred Hoiberg said they're going to accept the invitation to the NIT. Some fans care, some fans don't. You care? I don't. No,
I don't care a lot. I don't really care a lot. But it's a tournament, and they won it once. Maybe they can get hot.
True. I mean, you don't have Eric Strickland leading a walkout against the head coach this time.
That's true.
Baseball 5-8 on the season. They came back and won today to at least salvage 1 win out of their series against Washington. Baseball's an enigma to me right now.
Mason McConaughey.
I get him gone for the season, but he was not good with him in the rotation.
Oh, his ERA was over 6.
Yeah, I expected baseball to potentially host a region. The way they were picked
by a lot of pundits to win the league.
Yeah, I get it. They've had a tough schedule,
but this is not a team that is
hosting. This isn't a team that makes a regional right now.
I expected much better than 5-8.
Yeah, this is worrisome at this point.
It's worrisome.
We'll call it that. Softball, not worrisome. 17-6 overall. They won 14 yesterday, 24 today. If they play a team that is not as good as they are, they're going to run rule them. If they play a team that is better than they are, it's almost like they don't belong on the same field, and they're going to get run ruled. Every time they played somebody good this year, like it's not even close. Aside from maybe 1 game, I get it. You got one of the best players in college softball of any team, any conference, anywhere, in Jordy Ball, and you've got other great role players that are doing their roles. But when they go up against equal or better talent, I don't know what's going on. They literally are not even in the game.
What encourages me is when they play teams, and this has not always happened in the past, when they play teams like they did this weekend that are not as good. Was it Northern Iowa, Northern Colorado?
Yeah.
That are not good directional schools. They blow them out every time.
Yeah, that's great.
They take care of business because that hasn't always happened in the past.
But my question is, how many Northern Colorados are they going to face?
No, well, they'll face. They will face the competition they have in early this spring. Well, it's not spring yet. Clocks are back.
March, yeah, the clocks are, but March 21st or 22nd.
But
spring
early this season, they've faced a lot of tough 20 teams. They've beaten some of them.
One.
But I think that every time they played any competition that was not good, I like the fact that they destroyed them. They destroyed them all.
But again, you want to win a conference title, so win a conference tournament.
I think they will win the conference title.
But when you get to the point of NCAA tournament time, you're going to be playing teams as good as you are.
Usually, I'm the negative one.
I don't know what's going on.
Usually, I'm the one that's a little sour.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those that. Yeah, maybe a little bit of
hair of the dog.
No, just failure to
communicate.
Like they all the teams that we love and support continually have failed here recently, especially in the men's sports.
I will
side.
say this: I'm frustrated with the big three, the men's sports, right now.
Yeah.
The big three: baseball, basketball, football in particular. Those are the revenue sports. Because Nebraska, another great crowd today.
Yeah.
PBA. You have to win, or your season, at least as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned, is over. And I didn't think they showed up with the sense of urgency that they should have. That's discouraging. Nebraska baseball, but you might argue they're the best of the big three because they just won the postseason Big Ten tournament. Football under Matt Rule is 12 and 13 so far. So there's not a lot of energy with Nebraska men's sports right now. Sure, they're good in wrestling. They'll always be good in track, sports like that. But Nebraska needs to take a step up in the revenue sports.
Yeah,
they've got to be good.
Yeah.
So is that it?
No, that's it. It's I've had my fill of spring sports right now. I just.
By the way, they're not. What are they calling that? It's not going to be spring football, but they are doing these
spring games.
Spring games. That's it. Volleyball, football, and soccer.
Now, not funny, but the really annoying thing, or that's going to stink, is when somebody goes up for a block or for a kill playing volleyball, if they get injured, because then it's going to be
right.
Why are we even doing this?
Well, and that was Ruben's big argument for not doing the spring game. And he said after we did the spring game last year, all these guys were lining up in my office.
They said, "Hey, coach, I got a call from this school and that school and that school and that school."
And so he said, "Why should I put this thing on TV? We're one of the more watched teams anyway because there are Nebraska fans everywhere. And then you worry about losing your players, so I'm not doing it anymore. Plus, you're going down to a 105-man roster now, so you can't afford to get any guys injured. Not that the really good players were playing, like Ty Robinson, Matt, and Hutmaker weren't playing in the spring game last year. So your really good players weren't playing anyway.
Who's the receiver? Demetrius Bell? Wasn't it that?
Yeah, he got injured.
Yeah, but I mean that's the whole thing. Like a young man that realistically could have made some noise last year, and it went down.
Right.
Injuries can happen in practice too. I get it.
Yeah.
Or playing a pickup volleyball game. So,
Mitch Sherman, Locked On Nebraska, does that podcast with Connor Happer. He also writes for The Athletic. Great Nebraska football columnist, and he can speak to Nebraska basketball as well. He'll get his takes coming up.
Save money on your next painting project right now at Menards. Give your room a grand finish with Pittsburgh's Grand Distinction Interior Paint. It's a premium paint and primer with a top Brazilian finish that is ultra scrubbable and stain resistant. Save big on Pittsburgh Paint. And don't forget to check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com.
I wised up and text these guys before the show.
Now.
Do you know where kids can learn to shoot a basketball or instrument? Where teenagers have a safe place to hang out on a Friday night, and where families and seniors receive the support they need to make ends meet while the cost of living is skyrocketing? At the Salvation Army. This is Captain Kelsey, and I'm asking you to help us help women. Your financial support enables us to bring hope to those in need. So
On
please
in about
give
a
today
minute.
at LincolnSalvationArmy.org.
Tomorrow's leaders are today's students, and great public schools will get them ready. Hi, I'm Tim Royers, president of the Nebraska State Education Association. All students deserve schools with the resources, programs, and curriculum to nurture their curiosity, imagination, talents, and desire to learn. And it all starts with teachers, parents, students, and the community working together to support our schools.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
I started my adventure as an aerospace medical technician.
Flight medic in the Air Force Reserve.
Satellite system operator.
As a space systems operator.
And I'm a pilot for the Air Force Thunderbirds demonstration.
We deliver the world's timeliest environmental intelligence data.
Flying to Afghanistan, bringing wounded warriors back to Germany.
We take care of injured personnel on a daily basis.
And then flying them from Germany back to the States.
As a member of the Thunderbirds, I get to be a part of a team that passes on the message of the United States Air Force Reserve to the U.S. and the world.
It's a very exciting career.
One of the greatest things about the Air Force Reserve is all the different opportunities.
The training in the Air Force Reserve is second to none.
It gave me the opportunity to go to college.
The Air Force Reserve is actually great for my education.
Really good on YouTube,
it's definitely a bonus.
Probably the most exciting thing I've done is support humanitarian relief operations in places like Haiti.
The reserve gave me the opportunity to learn something totally different from what I did.
Being able to travel.
I enjoy the getaways that I get, and I enjoy the camaraderie and fellowship I share with all my inmates.
We're really close-knit, we're unique, and the Air Force Reserve gave me all those opportunities, and then even more.
Start your adventure in the Air Force Reserve.
What if we got rewarded for every good decision?
Dinner. Meal needs a vegetable. Check.
Amazing.
Vegetables cooked with a healthier oil instead of butter?
Fantastic.
Replacing bad fats with healthier fats, like those in canola or vegetable oil, is good for your heart. Take up the challenge for good health, because the you of the future will say,
fantastic.
Visit heart.org/face-the-fats. Canola Info proudly supports the American Heart Association's Face the Fats campaign.
I know.
It's your weekly rundown of Husker sports with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens.
We've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
Some different circumstances on those different one possession losses, but in this league, man, you got to find a way to protect your home court. We did not do a good enough job of that this year, especially with the support that we get. And, we're going to be back next year and hopefully do a better job. We had some great wins this year, but too many one possession. Where you got to find a way to whatever it takes. You got guys that haven't made threes all year. Freaking step up and make a three, but at the end of the day, it's not good enough. We got to be better protecting this home court.
There he is. Fred Hoiberg, after today's 83-68 loss to Iowa,
and they are not going to get in the Big Ten tournament, Nebraska, and the NCAA tournament. We already knew that. You had to win this one and probably a couple more in the Big Ten tournament to get to the NCAA tournament, and they will be an NIT invite, in my opinion, as we bring in Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. Hey, Mitch, how you doing?
Hey, Tom, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Your thoughts on the last couple months? Nebraska starts 12-2, and they win 5 games over the last couple of months. I don't think I saw it coming. Did you?
No, not at the point when things were rolling in January, early February. There was that 6-game losing streak, which I think was a red flag, but Nebraska bounced back well from that and then got into this pattern where games started slow and they were able to overcome it for a couple of times out on the road. And you thought, all right, now you're just going to have to put that type of play in the past and play a full 40 minutes. And it seemed like it would come back for a while. And then when it didn't, for me, what it kind of looked like was a team that was just kind of fizzling. And, I think in some ways the true colors of the team came out. Not that the team was as poorly put together or was as incomplete of a team as it appeared today or in when it went to Penn State. But I don't think that it was on the level of the team last year. I didn't see that necessarily when it was coming together. in the off season. I didn't see it in the first few times out early this season. I thought it was a kind of an offensive deficient team, and they played in spurts with defensive energy. Had a couple of foundational pieces, and then a lot of supporting parts that didn't necessarily form like the backbone that you need to become an NCAA tournament team or a top part of the Big Ten team. But for a while it seemed like they were finding a way to make it work. And I think some of that is a credit to Fred Hoiberg's coaching, and that he was able to make something when there wasn't necessarily all that much there. So at the end of it, to see them at 17-14, clearly it's disappointing to not make. It's a huge disappointment to not make the Big Ten tournament. I don't know if they had a team at the beginning of the year though that was all that much better than the way this finished. Yes, it could have been better. It should have been better when you look at where they were mid-season. But I think in retrospect, what we're going to find is that this team overachieved for part of the year and then came crashing back to earth.
Mitch Sherman from the joining on the Summit Lawns Talk and text line. Mitch, of the guys that can come back, don't have to name names, but do they all need to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to sit down and look at a roster and like sort through everyone's eligibility, and it's not something. First of all, it's not something where I cover basketball intensely. I kind of drop in and write a story here and there. It's not my primary focus. If the team was like Sweet 16 caliber or Final Four caliber, then absolutely, I'd be more on it because our readers would of course be more into it. So, they're gonna obviously bring Sam Hoiberg back. They're gonna obviously want to build around Rink Mast, whose loss in absence this year was significant. I think if you have him with Gary and Williams this season, it looks a lot different. 3 versus 2 foundational pieces is something that maybe could have made the difference between this team being where it is and outside of the Big Ten tournament and inside the NCAA tournament, because the margin for error is so small, and this team lived in the margins and so that's something to build on. I mean, Sam is a good complementary piece, and then from there, obviously they lose their 2 biggest players, and as Hoiberg said after the game today, they're going to be focusing their attention as soon as the portal opens and players start going in on finding the right kind of pieces. And, I think he's done that in the past. He did it the year that they got Gary and Williams. And I think last year they made do with what they could, but it didn't feel to me when, and I may be repeating myself, but it didn't feel to me when this team was coming together in the off season last year, like it was happening in as smooth of a way as probably needed to be for him to assemble the parts that are required to be a top half of the Big Ten team. So that's going to have to be a focus. And I don't know how you do it different. Like you have a certain amount of resources as Nebraska basketball. And they're going to have to recruit their butts off to get players out of the portal and make it work.
Yeah, they're not getting resources. The football is $14.5 million plus whatever they can spend via NIL and their recruiting class. In the portal via football was really pretty good. Basketball, I don't know what they get, maybe 3-4 million. It comes down to evaluation to me for basketball. You just you can't miss on guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think they probably evaluated and found and identified the players that they needed to have the right team. And then it's about evaluation, but it's also about getting them and about going toe to toe with the teams that are going to be recruiting those players and winning those battles. That's easier said than done for Nebraska basketball. And I'm not saying, oh, woe is Nebraska basketball. I mean, it's a Big Ten program with a lot of resources. And I don't want to get confused, get people have any confusion about what kind of resources I'm talking about. They have a great facility. They have a great playing venue. There are a lot of resources where if you measure Nebraska against the 300 plus Division I teams in the country, they're going to be in the top 15 or 20. And the resources that I'm talking about are the ones that allow you to be able to get players.
Sure.
And that's a factor. The facilities, all of that's a factor. The coaches are a factor. But in today's world of college sports, it comes down to dollars. And I think Nebraska's probably in about the middle of the Big Ten with resources that are devoted there to getting players. And revenue sharing is going to change that and that'll be an internal discussion that Nebraska has into how much it's going to allocate for men's basketball. Clearly, football is the king, and there are other considerations at Nebraska that some schools don't have, like how much do you give to women's volleyball. They all affect each other, so it all affects the bottom line for Fred's program.
Football is king. Let's get to that. That's your expertise of the Athletic and the Locked On Nebraska podcast. 7 new coaches, I believe, a new GM and Patrick Stewart. They've got a lot of new hires, obviously. The exciting one, Daniel Holgerson, and now Mike Eckler. Who excites you most, or where are you looking to as far as your expectation for improvement for next year?
Yeah, well, Eckler probably excites me most. Like, he's just an excitable person. So, and now having had the chance to visit, at least in a press conference setting with all the new coaches, including Holgerson, who's not really new, but new as of November. There's a lot of exciting faces and exciting words that have been said. Dana's the only one who's had an extended opportunity to coach these players. So I think you can have more of you can be more grounded in the excitement for him, because there's real results and there's real give and take. You can see the pluses and the minuses. What he brought to the system. The other guys, we'll know a little bit more in the spring, and then we'll really know a lot more when they get into when we get to August 28th and beyond that. But just from the exposure that we've had to these coaches now, and in terms of the area where I think Nebraska can quickly improve the most, it's special teams with Eckler.
I want to kind of follow up with that. With Mike Eckler, the success he had at Tennessee, what is going to be the difference this season for Nebraska's special teams to be successful in your mind?
I think it's about organization. It's about motivation. It's about attitude. Just off the top of my head, I'd put those 3 words right there. It's about having a plan with what they're doing. Every day, be it in the meeting rooms, in practice. I think they're going to retool all of that and look at everything that they're doing with special teams. And but it's also an area where I think you can improve quickly, because the players are there. And you just have to slot them into the right spots, and then give them the tools that they need, and that includes the words that are spoken by the coach, the coordinator, and the attitude that he brings to that entire group. At Tennessee, that's the thing that stood out the most is how he impacted their desire to go out there and play every rep on special teams. It was significant. He had a large impact, and he'll take that same formula and bring it to Nebraska.
He's Mitch Sherman of the Athletic and the Locked On Nebraska podcast. You mentioned Mike Eckler, and he was intriguing to listen to. He called Matt Rule, after only being here a couple of weeks, the best leader that he's ever been around. You've asked the question on your Locked On podcast, is he kind of blowing smoke? And do you think he was a little bit? How much can he mean it to it?
Well, I'm not suggesting that he is. I think it's just that he is blowing smoke. I think it's just an interesting question to ask, because his exposure to Rule has been so limited. I do think, and I heard this in response to just bringing the subject up, that you can learn a lot about it. You can identify a great leader if you are perceptive and you've been around a variety of different coaches and different leaders. You can probably identify a leader in a short period of time. I mean, some might say you can identify a leader in 5 minutes, or from a 1 hour conversation, or one day. He has a lot more exposure to Rule than that in being in place in Lincoln now for a couple of weeks. And we heard from Phil Snow the week before about how Matt Rule had presided over a 6 or 7 hour meeting recently that Eckler would have been a part of. So you can learn a lot about somebody, I think, in that time. But it still has to be there's still it's still all relative. Like, does he know everything he needs to know about Matt Rule as far as the type of coach he is in a game, or in a game week, or in game planning? No, I mean, they still have a ways to go on that. But from the leadership standpoint, I think he has a good small but a good sample, and I think he probably has a good ability to evaluate character. Eckler does. So he'll continue to learn more. And I'd be interested to revisit that question with Mike a year from now after they've been through a season together. What more he's learned and about rules that can complement his first impressions. But I think he's probably on the right track to knowing what's real and what is what's just the beginnings of this dynamic.
Mitch Sherman joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Mitch from the Athletic and Locked On podcast. Let's switch gears a little bit, head over to Haymarket Park and talk a little bit about Nebraska baseball. 13 games in, they're 5-8. I think most expected them to be a little bit better record-wise. What are your thoughts on kind of that first quarter of the season so far from Will Bolt's crew?
Yeah, it's hard not to term it as a disappointing start. You have the one big win against Vanderbilt that they got on the opening weekend, and that's huge. That's very important for their end of year goals to be able to get a win. You would like to see multiple wins like that, and the opportunities are limited, and it's probably unrealistic to say, oh, Nebraska needed to beat Vanderbilt and LSU, but they had opportunities to do both. And once you won the first one, and especially getting up 5-0 in that LSU game, I think if Nebraska had come out of those first three weekends at 5-5 and it had wins against Vanderbilt and LSU, you could kind of get past some of the other stuff and some of the games where like the Grand Canyon game or even the Kansas State game. Those are good opponents. They're NCAA tournament type teams, so they're not going to hurt too much to lose. You would like to win some of those games, more of them than you lose. But if Nebraska would have been able to hold on to that lead against LSU, then that would have been huge. I think they would have accomplished largely what they wanted from those first three weekends, but it didn't happen. LSU came back and won that game, and then things kind of compounded in a negative way on Nebraska after that because we found out about the injury to Mason McConaughey, which is it is a massive loss. That's your Friday night guy. That's the preseason All-American. He can still lead. He can still be there and be a presence, but it's not the same when he's not out there on the mound to be able to lead by his actions as a pitcher. So, I think that was a punch to the gut. And maybe you saw. I wasn't there at Haymarket Park yesterday, but it looked like Nebraska came out a little flat, getting down 5-0 in the first inning of the home opener, conference opener against Washington. And that was a bad day to get swept in your Big Ten opening day. But a nice bounce back today to get the win. It's an uphill battle for them from here because their ace pitcher's gone and because they've gotten out of the gates a little bit slow and had a losing weekend at home to start the Big Ten.
One more, Mitch. Spring game this year, of course, we took a little heat when saying there would be no spring game because guys were getting hurt. His players were getting stolen. In part, they're calling it now the Husker Games presented by FNBO, April 26th. What do you expect to learn from that? I guess it focuses on volleyball, soccer, and Husker football. How well attended do you think that event will be?
The football part of it, the volleyball part's going to be sold out. There's not any question about that. And if there's a team that you can learn something about, it's probably that team. That's intriguing because it's Danny Busboom Kelly's first opportunity to coach this group, and they're playing another opponent, a real opponent, in a real game, or at least an exhibition game, but it'll be structured like a real game, which is a far cry from what's happening at Memorial Stadium with football. But the spring game, as it was in previous years, is also a far cry from being a real game. So I think that probably needs to be taken into consideration when you look at what we're getting from a football viewing standpoint. Like, it's not like Nebraska was out there playing against UTEP in late April in previous years. Like, it was kind of a very much a canned event, and I just think we've heard rules explanation about the portal and putting players out there on display for other programs. And there's definitely some validity to that. And I believe that he believes that. I also just believe that college football is trending toward doing away with spring games and maybe spring practice as we have come to know it. It's going to take on more of an NFL model. Everything about college football is taking on more of an NFL model. They don't play spring games in the NFL. They have OTAs. They have periods for the players to come in and have different types of workouts and different types of practices. And I think that's where we're going to be in college in a fairly short period of time. As for what we get on April 26th at Memorial Stadium. Like for me, it probably will be. I think it should be entertaining for the fans. And you know, I don't want to say that I'm happy about the end of spring games, because there are some where we learned things about the team. And last year we got to see Dylan Raiola for the first time operate this offense. That was certainly valuable. But spring games are often not as much. They're built to be something more than what they actually are. So at least when you know what you're getting, you're going in, and it's not going to be a lot of football.
Yeah.
When do we get to hear from Rule again?
You know the schedule upside down and right side up.
Tuesday morning.
All right. We'll listen for that. We'll have that on the show. Great stuff as always, Mitch. We appreciate your time.
All right.
There you go. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic, and of course of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Get to hear from Matt Rule on Tuesday.
Yep.
Let's get the break. Come back with more. Mike Eckler, I thought, was the most interesting new coach to speak to the media this week. Got some sound bites for you when we come back. Husker Rewind.
Aging Partners NeighborLink connects volunteers with homebound seniors age 60 and over and persons with disabilities who need additional support. Volunteers will help pick up and deliver groceries, library books, meals, and medications, or maybe a friendly voice who's just checking in. Call 441-7575 or visit neighborlnk@lincoln.ne.gov. Sponsored by the City of Lincoln, Aging Partners, and the Seniors Foundation. NeighborLink, 441-7575.
Whether you're a young bachelor with a dog, a couple just starting to grow your family, or empty nesters looking to get Liberty First Credit Union, full suite of mortgage options with low to no money down to ensure you get that home you've been dreaming of.
I don't know anything about Husker basketball.
Mortgage advisors
knows everything about Husker basketball.
work hard to provide you the best loan. For current rates, options, or to complete a mortgage application, access libertyfirstcu.com. Equal housing opportunity.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Civic Tax Relief can help protect you from the IRS. Call Civic Tax Relief for free information now. Find out about the Fresh Start program that is now available through
This is
Civic Tax Relief special tax hotline.
About saving this one.
Cover all the
Simple
relief
asked him,
available for free.
switch from linebackers.
800-841-0908. 800-841-0908. 800-841-0908.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips on how
I'm going to play his quote on Levante David coming out.
reading about.
Levante David got a new
I
contract.
found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16.
Now that I'm in the weeds,
now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me that I don't want to miss all the things my daughter is going to do in
My
her life,
buddy just got back
including
from
turning 17.
where is it?
Quit.
Turks and Caicos and
Call 1-800-QUIT NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Home and Human Services and CDC.
But he loved
When
it.
I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans. When I grow up, I want to be for computer.
Yeah, I get steaks.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail. When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. If you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Back to Husker Rewind with Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
They're storming the floor. Tim Miles has punched our ticket, Husker fans. It's time to twerk. Let's go dancing.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
Yesterday, it really, truly brought tears to my eyes. We're sitting in a team meeting, and there was a deal about Levante David. And we were talking, they were talking to the team about it. And then I got up in special teams and I said, hey, fellas, I said, I don't know if you guys know this, but I was here in 8, 9, 10 and recruited that young man. And I kind of went through his story and said it was one of my favorite players I've ever coached in my entire career. And I said, truthfully, he taught me more than I ever taught him.
There's a guy that you kind of
hear the passion just comes out of the microphone through the radio.
Mike Eckler, who is from Blair, Nebraska. I think his parents are from Fremont, coached under Bo Pelini, was recruited by Bo Pelini and John Papuchis. Remember when Bo took over the job to come here, and he had to Bo had to convince Mike Eckler to take the gig. He was young in his coaching career, became a great linebackers coach. And that's really what he does best, and what he really loves to do. His teams at Tennessee were really good on special teams, but he's talking about Levante David there, who's accepted another 1-year contract. I think this is his third year in a row. Levante David has accepted a 1-year contract, $10 million, I believe, to play for Tampa for 2025. He's probably a Hall of Famer or borderline Hall of Famer.
How is he not? Like the number of seasons with the 100+ tackle. I mean, the numbers are astounding.
13 seasons with 100+ tackles. And last couple of years, he's had really good years. I don't know how old he is. What, 35, something like that? 5.5 sacks last year, 3 forced fumbles. He's got to be close to, like, I think of Levante, kind of similar to, I think of Derek Brooks, who played such a long time. Derek played the longest. Levante's second on that list, I believe. He'll tie Derek Brooks for the longest tenure, second longest tenure at Tampa. Number 1 is Rondé Barber, who played there for, I believe, 16 seasons in Tampa. But he's made his share of money. And if you know his recruiting story, Levante, not heavily recruited out of high school, had to go to junior college, recruited by Mike Eckler, and there's never been a better linebacker at Nebraska than Levante David. I still think about the best comeback in Nebraska football history versus Ohio State and the hit that he made on Miller.
It wasn't even a hit. He just took the damn ball away from him. And Miller twisted his ankle on the play and didn't play again.
Yeah, he's just fantastic. But I wanted to spend this segment talking about Mike Eckler because I found him interesting, and we all liked him when he was here. And we think, I think it was Phil Snow who called him a home run hire, the assistant head coach who's been around Matt Rule forever. He said, you got to hire this guy. He's a home run hire. But here's Mike Eckler talking about his career path.
Going these different places and being around some incredible coaches. I mean, from Ed Orgeron, Lane Kiffin, Mark Richt, played for Bob Stoops, Bill Snyder, all these guys that, and Bo, I mean, all these guys shaped me. And all we are as coaches, we're teachers. You can go to East Peabody U or you can go to Harvard. And I'm, by the grace of God, I got an opportunity to go to Harvard in coaching and with some unbelievable people that I've taken so much from. So I wouldn't change my path for anything.
See, and that's it's refreshing to hear. And a lot of people, you would kind of go, do they really mean it? Yeah. Don't they wish they had a break sooner?
He grew up a Nebraska fan as a kid. Yeah. He was a Nebraska fan.
But he's always come across, even going back to the 8, 9, 10 years with Bo, that you got the feeling that he was going to go on a journey in his career and he was going to enjoy every single step. And to me, that's what that comment says. Yeah, you know what? I had successes. I had failures. Mm-hmm. I'm better today because of the failures. The successes, went, okay, we figured that part of this out. But every time I had a failure, I learned from somebody that taught me something. Players taught me things. Coaches taught me. He was always a sponge is kind of what you're hearing from that, or read between the lines from my perspective. To me, he's always been, probably always will be, until the last day when he hangs up his whistle, hopefully, many, many years from now, that he's going to continue to learn every day. And it's going to be fun to watch the journey here at Nebraska to see how much better he can get personally, and he can make the special teams.
He's 53, I believe. He looks like he's 40. He is absolutely ripped. He does that interstate run. He did that interstate run.
He said he didn't quite make it. He got or like arrested or something.
I mean, you look at this guy and kind of reminds me of Frank Solich at that age.
Yeah.
Just ripped. A guy that, never ate anything other than like a veggie or the proper diet at all times. This is Mike Eckler talking about Matt Rule and his respect for Matt.
But this man may be the best leader I've ever been around. I mean, I sit there in his meetings and I'm taking notes left and right. He's incredible. I mean, the University of Nebraska, the people in Nebraska, I hope you understand how blessed you are to have such a tremendous coach and a great leader. And he's one of the only guys that probably in the game. Think about his path. Think about started off coaching D-line. Then he went linebackers, special teams coordinator. Then he makes, a logical progression. He's a defensive coordinator. Another logical progression, he's a quarterbacks coach. Then he's offensive line coach for the Giants when they won the Super Bowl. Then, who does that?
Yeah. We talked to Sherman, blowing smoke a little bit. He's only been here a couple of weeks. How could he possibly know how good of a leader that Matt Rule is? Because I think you get around Matt Rule the first time and you hear him speak and you go, whoa, he's a great speaker. And now we're wondering as Nebraska fans, yeah, he's a great speaker. Can he coach? Because they're 12-13, and that's got to be the next step. Obviously, they make the bowl game. They go 7-6 finally. They beat Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. That's the next progression. But Josh Heupel was his best friend or among his best friends at Tennessee. And he's coached with Mark Richt, Ed Orgeron, Lane Kiffin, and he's calling Matt Rule the best leader he's ever been around. That's high praise.
Well, it is, and I not knocking any of the other three that you just mentioned, but at the end of the day, if I listen to any of those three speak,
Bo Pelini?
Well, now Bo is, but the three that you mentioned specifically, right. With Mark Richt and Kiffin and Ed Orgeron, there's a little bit of used car salesman to all three of them. Not as much with Richt, but definitely with the other two. And with Matt Rule, you get no used car salesman type of vibe from him. You get, I want to go run through a wall when he gets done talking.
But also, he has the ability to sell the program, Matt Rule.
He does, but he doesn't do it in a phony way.
No, I don't think he does either. This is Mike Eckler on how excited he is about the team's speed.
We got a really fast football team. And like Coach Snow said, he said, I was talking about the speed, and Coach Snow's like, hey, have you ever seen a donkey win the Kentucky Derby? He goes, we recruit speed and develop guys. So I feel like I walked into an opportunity of a lifetime. And I walked away from a phenomenal situation where I was at Tennessee and with Josh Heupel, who's a lifelong friend of mine. So to come back here and to be a part of what's going on here and just do my job. That's what Coach said the other day. He said, everybody's got a job to do. Well, he hired me to come in here and coach special teams. And you know what? I'm going to give Coach Rule, I'm going to give the university and everybody in the state everything I got.
He's a fundamentals guy. He really teaches that. Tennessee, as we've talked about before, always top 15 when he was there. Top return yardage, in coverage, in kicking, almost every single category, they were top 15. And he just seems to have a way of translating. Some guys just got it. They have an it quality of coaching, and it just resonates with certain players. And it's got to be more than certain players. It's got to be, pretty much a whole team if you're a special teams coach.
Yeah. And let's face it, his special teams had fewer kicks blocked in 4 seasons than Nebraska did in 2 different games this year.
Wow.
They had kicks blocked like twice in 2 different games this past year, if I remember right. And Tennessee had 1 kick blocked in the last 4 years. Just completely astounding.
I'm excited about this. I think it's still going to be a process about the staff with 7 new coaches. I think I've already seen enough from Dana Holgerson where I'm excited with Mike Eckler watching from afar and then having him be here. He was a linebackers coach then. And they've asked him, hey, do you want to be on the road and recruiting as well? He goes, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I would put that guy on the road just because he's got great energy and he's always been known as a great recruiter. We'll see if he does that. But He says he's actually very excited to just coach special teams. When he was at Tennessee, he had to coach special teams and linebackers. He said he didn't get out of the office until like midnight every night. It was crazy. So now he gets to focus in on just special teams, and Nebraska dramatically needs it because they were bad.
With what we know of his work ethic, I'm guessing he's probably going to be able to get out of the office at like 11:45.
There you go. So he's got all that, an extra 15
minutes of extra time.
Who knows what he could probably out recruiting during that 15 minutes. We'll get to break, come back with Husker Hall of Famer Bo Reed. Talk a little Husker basketball. I know it's a little depressing, but it's therapy. It's therapy for the soul. You're not buying it, are you, Mike? Back with more after this. Husker Rewind.
Hi, Mary Searcy here, new home specialist with the Searcy team of Home Real Estate. Today is a fabulous time to consider a brand new home. With great new neighborhoods, ample selections, and excellent prices, this is a perfect time to rethink real estate. Put the Searcy Team Advantage to work for you in 2024 and connect with us today.
Feel it home with the Searcy Team. More for your money. SearcyTeam.com.
Welcome, John, our new admin lead.
Thanks.
You've got your laptop, all your admin apps. Oh, and you'll be in charge of ordering food for the team. So here's your drawer full of menus.
Oh.
You'll keep your receipts in this file folder. Oops, receipt confetti.
Oh, dear.
Oh, and all these sticky notes have everyone's dietary preferences.
Have you tried EasyCater? Online ordering from great restaurants, tools to save time and stay on budget, digital receipts in one place.
We're going to need a bigger recycling bin.
EasyCater, the smarter, simpler way to order food for your workplace. Order now at easycater.com.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated in the best hearing aids of 2024 by USA Today, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, just $189.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I cannot believe how my hearing and life changed. Join over 500,000 happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN.
NIT sounds like they're already accepting it.
Important deal. Join me weekdays for This Morning, America's First News. Hear the stories you'll be talking about and searching for all
we'll be
day.
on in 2 minutes.
We go beyond the headlines and above the chatter with your first look at breaking news, money, Washington politics, technology, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and sports. We explain why stories matter. That's why we are referred to as the most important and relevant radio program. Join us weekdays for This Morning, America's First News.
From the Momo Pizzeria and Ristorante Studios, we are the voice of Lincoln. KLIN Lincoln. KBDK HD3 Lincoln. K257GN Lincoln is 1499.3 KLIN. Welcome to the best recap of Husker sports, Husker Rewind, with your hosts Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome to the circus.
8368, right?
Go off the left side, looking, and pay dirt. Ramir Johnson, the local boy, the Harlem native, punches it in for Nebraska, and they strike first.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher. Set in the middle, Schreck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Call it, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Say your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Grumbaugh's there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Hour number
two. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7.
Nebraska loses the heartbreaker to Iowa. 83-68 at home at PBA, a game they had to win just to make the Big Ten tournament. They're not going to make the Big Ten tournament. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament. In fact, if they would have won today, they would have probably had to win 2 more. Maybe Mike thinks maybe 1 more to make the NCAA tournament. In fact, Fred, I think, said the other night, if they beat Ohio State, he thought they were in a game where they were up 5 late, couldn't hold on, and Nebraska now most likely headed to the NIT as we welcome in Nebraska Basketball Hall of Famer Bo Reed. Hi, Bo. How are you?
Hi, guys. I'm good.
Good. Boy, it's heartbreaking to see this season end the way it has. Obviously, it's not over. They're still playing the NIT, but at one time, 12-2, and then over the last 2 months, they've won 5 games. What went wrong in your mind?
I don't know. I think going all the way back to the first Iowa game when we're winning by 15 points in the second half, and we just don't have a level of toughness or grit that basically says, you know, we're going to dig in and we're going to get after it and we're going to make this thing ugly if we have to make it ugly to win. I just don't think we're willing to do the dirty work. I don't think we're willing to do the little things to win basketball games, and little habits that had started to kind of creep in became big habits late. And, you know, I just think when you blow big leads like we've blown, you know, there's something to be said for having somebody on the basketball court that understands when you give up, like we did today, a minute and a half, we give up an 8-0 run, there's a timeout called. Coming out of that timeout, we have to get something to stop that run and signal to the other team, no, you're done with that now. You know, we figured out what that was. And we don't have those guys. We don't have those dudes. And as good as Bryce Williams is, he's not that guy. He's not that I'm going to assert myself and take over this game and demand the basketball. He's just not that kid.
We've said it before. They need a last year.
They kind of had that guy.
He was that guy willing to get a little dirty. Juwan is that way a little bit, but boy, Josiah was really that way.
Yeah, I think that's the guy we miss the most, probably, is just his toughness, his willing to do the little things. He really made us better defensively. He covered up a lot of backside holes, you know, in the defense. Like, that kid understood basketball, and he wasn't afraid to just knock someone down and raise his hand at the ref like, yeah, sorry, that's a foul. You're going to go ahead and make free throw.
Yeah, it's on me. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't have any of those guys this year that are like, hey, Peyton Sanford, you're on a heater. You just made 3 in a row. This next one, you're going to land on your back, and I'll help you up, but you're going to have to make your free throws, big boy. You're done. Yeah. You're not shooting anymore without physical contact the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So with the guys that they've got coming back or potentially coming back, I asked Mitch Sherman this earlier. What guys need to come back and which guys maybe don't? I mean, are there some that may be better off at a different location? Or is it just something where if they had a different supporting cast and maybe somebody that was more like Josiah Allick, more like yourself to come in and throw a little weight around, would they just be just fine?
Oh, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, and in today's era, I can't tell who's a senior, who isn't, who's coming back, who isn't. It's pretty bizarre, you know. And I think really what it comes down to is, in this new era of NIL, you really have to spend your money wisely, and the guys that you spend your money on have to deliver. And unfortunately for us this year, the 2 big kids just were a monumental letdown. They got paid a lot of money to come here and play basketball, and they didn't play with any passion or heart. I mean, none.
This seems like a team that when they're cooking, they're shooting well. They played well against Ohio State. Last year, obviously, they had shooters everywhere. You had obviously Casey, you had CJ, you had Jamarcus, you had Bryce, you had even Josiah, and of course Rink. You had a bunch of different guys that you could spread the floor, and because they backdoored you so much, it was really tough to cover them. Now you've got too many guys that the teams don't trust that you can make a shot on them, and they can sag a little bit on you.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it comes down to what do you do on a night where you're not making those shots, where the other team is defending the 3-point line well. How do you get to the rim? How do you get downhill? I mean, we shot 26 or 7 free throws today, I think. I mean, we just let Iowa beat us to most of the loose balls. They killed us on the boards, got some really critical offensive rebounds. And then it seems like an inopportune turnover would stick its nose in there right when we feel like we're maybe going to make a run to get back in the thing and the crowd gets into it. It just was a tough loss. I mean, Iowa always plays well against us, and I don't understand why, but they get a lot of inside out, a lot of dribble penetration. And I said this sitting by Pike today. I think the dirtiest little secret of our entire basketball team is that we don't stay in front of the basketball. We give up dribble penetration to the heart of our defense way too frequently, and that leads to open three-pointers on the perimeter. When we lock down the middle of the floor, it helps every single other aspect about our defense. We get out to cover threes better. We rebound better. But, man, when we get beat off the dribble into the middle of the floor, and that happened a lot. Think how many uncontested layups they got in the half court today.
Yeah.
Just too many. Way too many.
You mentioned
said Pike today. I'm just wondering.
His all-time single game scoring record was broken by Bryce last week. Did he mention it at all?
He didn't. I called him that night. Put an asterisk by that. I mean, he played 2 overtimes and made a last-second shot from 30 to beat the record by 1. And Pike, I think, played 34 minutes in that game and scored 42 against Oklahoma to, win the big tournament. Come on. It's not the same thing.
Not even close.
His name's in the deal, but it's not the same game. Pike's was spectacular.
But in Bryce's defense, he had you. I mean, he had a lot of players around him. There was so much talent on those teams.
I mean, you could look at it that way, but if you have that many players around you, I mean, gosh, we had 5 or 6 guys that averaged in double figures. It's hard to score 43 when all those people have to touch the ball. When you're the only guy and you're getting every shot down the stretch for 15 straight minutes, I'm not taking anything away from the kid. I don't want it to sound like bitter, but one of the best performances I've ever seen. Well, first of all, we didn't win. Secondly, it wasn't the same thing. It just wasn't. And, it was a great game. Bryce played unbelievable. And when he missed that free throw, it could have won it. He came out and scored the first 7 points of overtime. I was like, okay, there's a dude answering for missing an opportunity. I loved it. But gosh,
Yeah.
No, Eric didn't talk about it.
you made up for that.
Yeah, I brought it up.
Bo Reed joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and text line. Bo, I want to ask you, do you like the identity that Fred Hoiberg has settled on for the program? Blue collar, hardworking defenders. I need some shooters. Do you like that identity for the program?
Yeah, when we play that way. I mean, I think we lost that identity somewhere along the line this season. I think that was absolutely how we had to win basketball games. We had to mud it out. We had to play ugly. We had to challenge shots and play physical. And we just, I think in games where we start off and we make 3 or 4 threes in a row, I think those kids just have a tendency to relax and think we're just going to shoot it and it's going to be pretty and it's going to be fun and we're not going to have to get nasty and get ugly. And that's just not the way the Big Ten is. People make adjustments. People play physical. They're going to take away your first option. I thought Iowa did a wonderful job today taking away Bryce's right hand. He could not get downhill with his left hand at all. They took away our guy. Juwan Gary answered the bell. I mean, after that, Sam Hoiberg is our next leading scorer. Sejan couldn't throw it in the ocean today. And, I mean, we just didn't play well.
How confident are you going forward, knowing that not just Nebraska, it seems like every team in college basketball is going to have to sign 7 new guys every year. And you got to figure out NIL and revenue sharing and build chemistry and find the right guys to build chemistry. Yeah. It's tough for everyone. How tough do you see it going forward for Nebraska basketball?
Well, I'll tell you, you look around college basketball and there's 7 or 8 Nebraska kids that are playing pretty big roles in other programs. I think we have to figure that out first. I think we're going to have to build a foundation or at least have some of those kids that are those intangible players, those kids that deliver, the little things, that dive on the floor, the loose ball, the way Sam plays. But I think we need a handful of those kids that you're not worried about running somewhere else to get paid, that want to be part of the program that don't necessarily think they're pro basketball players, but can play, and gosh darn it. I mean, you look around at the impact these kids are having that played in Nebraska, and it's frustrating that none of them are playing for us.
Yeah. Chucky's incredible this year. I mean, he's turned over. Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, that kid had 31 on us last time. What did he have tonight? 20 again or 18?
Yeah.
I mean, that kid, he's a walking 15-foot jump shot. I mean,
and now he's making three. He was 6 last week from 3.
Yeah.
Well, and now,
I mean, I just think if you get some kids that are playing for that name on the front, I know that's even more rare than ever before now in this era of NIL. All the kids have delusions of grandeur and they want to get paid. But man, if you could get some kids that really want to be part of the Husker program, and you get them when they're sophomores, you get them early, it just feels like you're going to have a foundation there that you're not going to have to go find 7 or 8 guys. I mean, now Fred's going to have to go out and raise money, right? He's got to go get a bunch of money in the NIL deal so we can get out in the portal and try to plug pieces in. I think the one thing that Fred's figured out is he knows the formula on how he has to build a team that can compete in the Big Ten. You need size. You need a power forward that can rebound. You need these certain pieces to be able to compete in this league. I think he's figured all that out. Unfortunately, some of the kids we had to take this year and some of the kids we paid to come in and make a difference didn't make a difference.
So Tom Izzo earlier this last week kind of defended Fran McCaffrey at Iowa, saying, he's in a bad spot. A lot of teams in the Big Ten are. Look at the resources they have. All you need to see is the talent on the floor, and you can tell who can afford the talent and who can't. Essentially saying Iowa doesn't have the NIL backing that Michigan State does, that Michigan does. And you can include in that, I think, quite obviously, Nebraska. Speculation about $2 to $3 million per year goes to basketball. Realistically, to be competitive and go get the guys, the Chucky Hepburns, the Hunter Salistons, the Frankie Fiddlers,
Cooper Flagg's making $14 million. $14 million via NIL.
Yeah, but the point is, like, Nebraska needs $4 to $5 to $6 million a year to spend on basketball. Until they do, is it even realistic to think that they're going to be able to get the guys that can make the difference?
Well, I think instead of spreading out $5 million over 6 guys, I think you got to go get 2 guys. And then I think you got to be able to go find some kids in the Midwest that can fill in the pieces. In basketball, you don't need 5 guys. You need 2 NBA players, and you can make the NCAA tournament. 3 NBA players, and you're in the Sweet 16. And so you don't have to go buy 8 guys. You got to buy 2 studs. And maybe I don't know how it works well enough, but I always thought that with Nebraska's resources, with our facilities, I thought we've got enough money that we can go buy 2-3 players and we can fill in around that. And I think we can put a really respectable product on the floor. But you spread out $3 or $4 million over 6 guys, and you're getting the last guys. You're getting it's like our football team saying we're going to play a pro offense, and we never had the quarterback. Now we spent the money. Now all of a sudden we're getting receivers, we're getting linemen.
Yeah.
I think you gotta go get a couple horses that kids want to play with.
Yeah. It would be nice to know also what everybody's spending, kind of like the NBA and the NFL. You can kind of prioritize what you're spending. I think some schools, and I don't remember who told me this, but some of the worst schools overspend because they need one marquee guy. So that guy that you want, you can't afford because another school has spent too much on it.
Right.
So,
well, we got to figure it out. I mean, I don't buy that we don't have resources. You look at our football stadium, you look at our basketball arena, you look at the locker rooms, you look at the facilities, our NIL, our athletic department has 0 debt. Not a lot of schools can say that. Probably only 5 teams in the Big Ten can even say that. I think we're in a position where if people understood NIL better, they'd be more willing to help, I think. I just think right now it feels a lot like a government program where no one knows where the money's going, and everyone's just looking around like, well, you're asking me for money, but no one can tell me where it's going.
Right.
And I think we have to do a better job and build confidence in people for what NIL is and how it works and how it operates within our state so that people can feel comfortable. You can't tell me we don't support our teams. I mean, that arena is sold out today. We sell out our football stadium. We haven't had a winning record in years. I mean, the people want a winner. They'll support it. We just have to explain it to them.
There's not many Big Ten teams that would have gotten that kind of crowd with a product that, is 17-13 going into today.
Bo, to your point, Nebraska, I believe, is going to wind up the season 13th in the NCAA in attendance and finish 16th in the Big Ten Conference.
Crazy.
Yeah. And, I wasn't the biggest Keisei Tominaga fan, I'll be honest with you, because I just felt like defensively he was tough to watch. But I'll tell you this, our fans loved him. You know why? Because that kid played with a huge amount of heart and emotion.
And joy.
He got our crowd into the game. They loved watching him play because that dude was playing to win, and he played his heart out every single game. And he wore his heart on his sleeve. And now we got a bunch of dudes that just like, oh, well, yeah, we're starting to lose at home again. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, well. No, not oh, well. There's 16,000 people sitting here that are reasons to not say, oh, well. It's time to dive on the floor. It's time to get physical and get through a screen. You look at what happened at Ohio State. We were getting that one kid open. That big kid ran straight through our guy. And they called a foul. And he goes, yeah, sorry, he helped our guy up. Our guy missed the free throw because he absolutely just ran straight through him. Like, yeah, you're not going to set that screen that hard again. Watch. And Morgan didn't. He didn't set that screen like that anymore. We had to go away from that play after we had been very successful with it 5 straight times down the floor. But that kid got sick of it, ran right through the screen and said, okay, if you're going to set that screen, you're going to have to set that screen because I'm coming through. And, we keep running around it, It's like I just want to see someone that's willing to fight to win.
Great takes. We appreciate it. It's been a fun season. It's not over. Maybe they'll make a run in the NIT. Who knows, Bo?
Well, I do think, I think Fred is a good basketball coach. And I just think, we got to figure this NIL thing out so that we have a system to it and people can understand it so they can support it. 'Cause our people will support it. But we have to paint a picture for them, explain what the goal is, what we're trying to accomplish, and how it works. And I haven't ever heard a good description of how it works, why it should be a certain way. And I just think maybe it's changing that much that we don't know. But I think someone's got to come forward and say, here's what we need to do to be successful. And I think the Nebraska people will support it.
Yep. Oh, we've loved having you this season. We'll have you back to the NIT run. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
There you go. Thanks, Bo Reed, Nebraska Basketball Hall of Famer. Great takes. Love his stuff. Let's get the break. Come back with another guy that we like to take. Stephen M. Sipple of Huskers Online coming up next.
Whether you're a young bachelor with a dog, a couple just starting to grow your family, or empty nesters looking to downsize, Liberty First Credit Union has a full suite of mortgage options with low to no money down to ensure you get that home you've been dreaming of. Since Liberty First is not-for-profit and member-owned, mortgage advisors are on your side and work hard to provide you the best loan. For current rates, options, or to complete a mortgage application, access libertyfirstcu.com. Equal housing opportunity.
It takes hard work to make Nebraska the right place to raise a family, build a business,
Hey,
or
Steve,
grow.
how are you?
We're counting on working parents to make it happen, and they're counting on childcare professionals to have their backs. Employers and other contributors can earn up to a $100,000 tax credit for strengthening childcare in our communities and state. Learn more at nebraskachildcaretaxcredit.org. Brought to you by First 5 Nebraska and Nebraska Children and Families Foundation, and aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
May 15,
You
9
do
a.m.
look good. What are you weighing? Like 165,
waiting
170? I see on TV all the time.
Woman 1 says, cold day.
Robin's a workout
Woman
machine
2.
as well. So
What's
you and
that?
Robin like your
Woman 1,
machines on there.
kind of cold today. Woman 2, yeah, wasn't
he's
expecting
cheating.
that.
He's absolutely cheating.
Woman 1, what is it, 47 degrees?
That's true.
Woman
I'm
2,
taking up yoga, actually, Steve. I really like it. Hot yoga
45.
and hot works.
Woman 1, Yeah.
And it takes more strength than you think. I mean, it's
training.
hard.
Woman
It's hard.
2. That would be sad. Woman 1. So
Yep.
sad.
All right, we're
Woman
going on
2.
the air in about 2 minutes.
The weather.
Right, perfect.
Woman 1. Crazy. Please don't waste your small talk. Donate it to foster care. Because just talking about the 400,000 kids in foster care can help the 400,000 kids in foster care. Learn more at donateyoursmalltalk.org. Brought to you by Foster More.
Dear employer, my name is Phil Martin.
My name is Michael Roskovich.
Ronaldo Bird.
Zach Jones.
I'm writing to express my excitement at the opportunity to join your team.
As someone on the spectrum, I possess a unique set of skills
That sets me apart from other candidates. My nature allows me to communicate complex ideas, to break down data,
to have no fear in meeting new people.
I may communicate in ways that are different from what you are used to.
structure, routine,
and clear expectation.
Help me do my best work.
My autism allows me to have a perspective that needs to be seen and heard.
It allows me to make the world safer and improve systems in ways others can't. It allows me to bring people's inner worlds to.
Have I played all of this? Urgency kills me. I
Bring
think
your
I've
team
played it all.
important insights.
Oh yeah. I'm an expert.
An autistic inclusive workplace
We'll
is
start
good for
with- we
business.
just did
It's
that,
time to
20
make a
minutes
change.
basketball, so
Learn
we'll start
more
with
at
that.
autismspeaks.org/win.
Back to Husker Rewind with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens. Old enough to remember Nebraska's national titles.
Oh, they don't have him yet. Look at Tommy Frazier. How many tackles can one man break? Touchdown.
Yeah, young enough to remember what they had for lunch.
How about a nice, greasy pork sandwich served in a dirty ashtray?
On 1499.3 KLIN.
You know, we had a 3-year run at Southern Cal in Georgia, went 10-3, 10-3. 2 out of those 3 years, we were number 7 defense in the country. And both those years, I put a for sale sign in my front yard. You know, we got let go as a staff at Southern Cal with Lane and then with Coach Richt. And so really, truly, that kind of sparked me into, I like to be on an island. And there's an old saying, my ass, my hands. And so that's where I like to go. And you know what? We play great on special teams. It's on these kids. We don't. It's on me.
That was Mike Eckler, and I believe our next guest on the Sunday Lost Talk text line is the one that asked him the question that led to that response. Steve Sipple from Husker Online. Sip, your take on the first chance Nebraska fans have had to hear from Mike Eckler in the better part of about 15 years.
Well, he's matured a lot.
Is that good or bad, though? I mean, come on.
It's good. I mean, he was here. He was last here in 2010. It's quite a long time ago, and he's been through a lot. He's been through. I mean, he was at Indiana. I can't go through them all. I think Indiana, USC, Georgia, a couple times at North Texas,
USC, yep.
Tennessee,
North Carolina, Kansas, and then Tennessee. I think I got them all. So he's been around. He's had a lot of disparate experiences, but I do remember. So I've talked to him a lot over the years, and I do remember when he started making the kind of this transition to I want to be special teams oriented, and it's paid off for him. I mean, it was around COVID. You know, and he was just the special teams coordinator in North Texas, and that was his emphasis at Tennessee, and he loved it. It became sort of his life's work.
Yeah, and he uses the sales pitch that a lot of special teams coaches use. Hey, you want to get to the NFL? You're going to start on special teams. You want to become a complete football player? You better start on special teams. But the way he says it seems to resonate.
Well, it would, I think. I mean, he's a good recruiter, so he's a good salesman. You know, he's a good salesperson, and he sells special teams very well. You know, he sells it to the fan base, and he sells it obviously to the players, and he sells its importance very well. And he's just he's a dynamic person. So it's a great hire. It really is. I don't. Sometimes I wonder why these hires have to. You got to kind of wait till you get in a hole to make them. But he's a great hire, and I think he'll pay immediate dividends. I really do. I mean, I hate doing that when you sort of say the thing that seems easy, but I really believe it.
You say it's a great hire, and I believe you. I think obviously Rule's made some pretty good hires. He's got a new GM. He's got a new defensive line coach in Bratton, a guy that's won 3 Super Bowls. He's got Dana Holgerson. We're all excited about that. I think Butler's a good hire. But some fans would say, yeah, but why didn't you get it done the first time around? They will say that. Is there any argument there today? That why didn't you get it? Yeah.
Yeah, but I also, with due respect, I'm not saying he's getting it done the second time around. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that all those hires are perfect. I don't know that they're imperfect. I just don't. I've gotten kind of over crowning people before they do anything.
Sure.
And we do a lot of that in Nebraska. And I'm not. I'm just kind of stopped. Let's see. Let's see what they have. Now, I don't mind talking about Eckler as much because his 4-year run at Tennessee was superb. I mean, it was superb in the SEC. Terry Braden, I don't know what he brings. I know he's got a tough job. I know that he hasn't been he hasn't led a defensive line room ever. So to me, that was a little more of a suspect hire. He's inexperienced and he has probably the toughest job. So let's see what that looks like. I'm not going to. He wasn't the defensive line. He was the assistant defensive line coach in Kansas City. There's a big difference. So I just know he's got a really hard job. I'd probably prefer someone with a little more experience in that position.
Sip, let me ask you this. We got a chance to hear from the majority of the newest hires last week. Outside of Mike Eckler, what were some of the takeaways that you were maybe surprised by that you heard from some of the newer coaches?
Oh, nothing surprised me too much. Although I didn't know Terry Braden at all. I didn't know what he looked like hardly. And then he was very, very. He's upbeat. That's what the big takeaway from people was. He was kind of like Eckler in a way. Although Eckler with age is kind of dialed back a little bit. I like that demeanor of Addison Williams. I like that cerebral type of cornerbacks coach. It's such a position of wild swings because you get beat a lot. And I've always liked cornerback coaches who are sort of calm, cerebral types like George Darlington. Addison Williams is that guy. We're just getting to know these guys. It's very early. Come on, they're just getting to know the players. We're just getting to know them. This is all in a lot of these cases, not in the case of Eckler, but in the case of Braden and Addison Williams, it's my first look at them. I mean, and Phil Snow was like that too. So just very early. It all points to what I keep saying about Matt Rule. This is a critical period right now as we're speaking. Because he's got to get all of these guys. I mean, we're talking about 7 new assistant coaches and pretty much a brand new recruiting department. Maybe one guy left, Keith Williams. All new recruiting department. I mean, this is like a reset, but it's not. You can't call it that. Nobody wants to hear that. We're just, years 1 and 2 were just okay. Let's start it over. No, I can't really do that anymore.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to hear Matt Rule speak to the media, I believe, on Tuesday. We'll get some of these questions answered. Let's switch to basketball. Senior day today, a must-win situation for Nebraska basketball. They seem to lack a little energy, a sense of urgency. They fall to Iowa, a game that they must have had. They had to have just to make the Big Ten tournament. Now they're headed to the NIT. How do you describe this season for Nebraska basketball?
Volatile. It's very volatile. It was just kind of wild. It was also disappointing, I'd say. I mean, if you just look at where they once were at 13-2, after it beat UCLA, or 12. I guess it was 12-2.
12-2.
After it beat UCLA back in January. It seemed like there was so much promise. And then, they were up at Iowa. And they ended up losing the game. They're up by 15 and ended up losing it. And that's where the problem started, really. At that point, then you lost, that was the first of 6 straight. Got out of that hole, though. You got out of that hole and you beat Illinois. You won at Oregon. Those are 2 top 20 teams. Got a win against Ohio State, so you got 4 in a row. Then I don't know. They lost to Maryland. They just never really totally found themselves. Lost 6-7. So I thought, though, I did really believe they would win today. So I think if I were a Nebraska fan and you're judging this whole thing and you're judging Fred, you got to kind of look at where were you at at 11 a.m. today with all of this, and then you got to kind of decide or guard against letting one game completely influence the way you look at it. Where were you at 11 a.m.? That's what I would ask.
Sip, at 11 a.m., I finished reading your article about the volatile season and how the swing is going to go back to the positive. They're going to go on a run, and I believed in Fred from day one.
Did you put $1,000 in this game?
It wasn't quite 1,000, but it did not. That bet did not go well for me. Regardless, I love.
How much are you saying? Sipple owes you some money?
No, because the bottom line is I loved that article because it was filled with hope and belief that they were going to do something, that they were going to make a splash, and that's what we need more of. And I've been very unsplash-like so far on the show today. I've been very negative, but that article made my morning. And who knows, Sip, maybe you're just a game late. You know what I mean? Maybe the swing comes in the NIT.
I don't know, Mike. Well, I appreciate your kind words, first of all. I really believe – now, people are all over me. They're saying, how did you not see this coming? Well, I thought the defense against Michigan was tremendous. I watch every possession of these games. I thought they really played hard against Michigan and then scored 114 in Ohio State and had bounds. I really believed they would get on track today. And then, you throw caution to the wind in Indy is what I thought. And play loose and play, just have fun. There wasn't a ton of pressure on Nebraska. In a sense, there's some internal pressure, but there wasn't a lot of outside pressure. So I'm befuddled. I am by today. It's not at all what I expected in terms of effort. I just wish they didn't guard like I thought they would. Iowa had zero turnovers. You forced no turnovers in the second half. I mean, I watched it. I try to watch every possession of these games, and the energy was not there. I don't get it.
I know you got into a discussion, maybe an argument on one of the fan chat lines after the game. And you try to should move on from Fred and see what you hear, amigo, I think was the line. Nebraska will not move on from Fred Hoiberg. He was coach of the year last year, and he's making the NIT. I don't know what they expected this year, but going into next year, you think the seat is a little warm?
I think it should be. I mean, yeah, I do. But see, here's what I have to remind myself of what I wrote, guys. I thought that Fred had done well enough with this team to put it in position to go on a little run here and maybe get in the tournament as an 11 seed, get state and play a play-in game. I thought that's the vision I had. So obviously, I didn't think he was doing that bad of a job. Not great. I've been very critical of Fred. I think anybody in this market would. I mean, of everybody in the market that writes about, I've probably been the most critical. Now, I haven't been as critical of late. Obviously, not last year, not too much this year, but I mean, I don't dismiss. People dismiss the first 3 years. They give Fred an incredible amount of grace. I never really did that. But anyway, so I thought he was doing okay. But no, this not getting to the Big Ten tournament in the 6th year and having only one NCAA tournament appearance and no wins after 6 years. If he's not on a warm seat next year, then you really have to evaluate where you're at as a program. I mean, you can't be that last, or you just get what we're seeing. Basically, I think that's my opinion.
Yep.
Hey, before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on the baseball and softball teams and their starts to the season so far. A little disappointing on the baseball side. Good against bad teams on the softball side, and question marks against good teams on the softball side. But what are your thoughts with those two programs?
Well, I mean, nobody expects Nebraska to lose Nebraska baseball to lose its Big Ten series opener at home or anywhere really. So I didn't know what to make of that, except there's some glaring issues, as there usually is with a team that's 5-8, and one of them is they're not getting enough outs with 2 outs. Pitching staff's not closing down innings. The opponents have scored an inordinate amount of runs with 2 outs, and that's not what I would expect from a Will Bolt team. So they're trying to keep things together. Today's good though. Today's a good day. They didn't just let the series completely go. They showed you something today by winning that game 6-2. I think was the final, and getting Jackson Brockett had a great outing, 4 2/3. Christo was good out of the pen. The pen did its job. They got plenty of offense. They made it pretty easy, and that tells me a little bit about the team. And I just don't have much to say about the softball because I don't follow it that close. But it's a long season for the Nebraska baseball team. But they're not where they want to be, obviously, after a quarter.
Yeah, and they lose the best player in Jason McConaughey. That's going to be tough. Hitting has been a big problem. They're hitting like 240 on the season, like 236, and somewhere around the 230s in the country. So they've really struggled offensively. Pitching hasn't been great. Nebraska always struggles, it seems like, early in the year because they play such good teams. But this is a little concerning right now. We'll figure it out, I guess. We'll figure it out.
A lot to figure out. I get to spring football and have a little fun.
There you go. Great stuff, Steve, as always. We appreciate the time. Have a great night.
All right.
Thanks, Sip. Take care.
Yeah, I think he's heading to the gym. He's in great shape. That guy is strength of 10 men, as I told him on the phone.
I'd even go 11.
He might go 11. He's a pretty big, bad guy. Used to be a boxer, Stephen M. Sippin. Let's get the break. Come back with more. Our final segment after this. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind.
You're listening to Husker Rewind. Sean Hannity is next on 1499.3 KLIN.
Now at Menards, save big money on everything to update your home. Easily create your dream kitchen with Clearview Cabinetry. With so many styles to choose from, you'll be sure to find plenty of options that you'll love. Start your project today and save big on Clearview Cabinetry. Visit Menards.com for a entire selection of Clearview cabinets today. Plus, check out the weekly flyer for many other great deals happening this week.
Not really an editorial, but some thoughts.
Whether fishing is your passion or your way of achieving zen,
We could go
getting away to Ballard's Resort and Lake of the
Big
Woods
Ten Blitz if we want to do that. We could.
Live
I
is
don't
a
know.
chance to
Yeah,
create
right.
unforgettable memories. Expert
You're
guides
kind of
lead you to the best
6
spot
o'clock
and
hour
the biggest
right
fish
after
on a
our
27-foot
basketball.
sports raft. Cabins are fully accommodated with generous meals. Luxury coaches
Yeah,
will
we'll
turn
worry
this
about that
event.
another time.
It's happening July 13th through 17th at Ballard's Resort on the Lake of the Woods. Get details at klin.com.
Orangutans. They're beautiful, playful, and majestic, and disappearing. Every day, as many as 20 orangutans vanish. They starve to death when their homes are destroyed or are killed when they stray into villages in search of food. International Animal Rescue is fighting for the survival of the critically endangered orangutan, but we can't do it without you. Please visit internationalanimalrescue.org and help us save orangutans before it's too late. That's internationalanimalrescue.org.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies. including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. And it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to goodrx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
Introducing the YMCA. What, you already know the why? Or so you think. Sure, you know the why for a swim, a workout, even a game of hoops. But did you know we're more than that? We're a cause. When you take your jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Take a cardio class, while kids are in an after-school enrichment program. Practice your downward-facing dog as a team practices her leadership skills. That's the why. We work with people no matter their age, income, or background, and give them the opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive, all with one simple goal in mind, to strengthen our community. And we've got so much more that does just that. So while you might think of the Y as that place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. Introducing the Y. We're so much more than a place, we're a cause. Visit ymca.net/more.
It's the most complete weekly recap of Husker sports.
Nebraska's going to get a swing outside. Kelsey fade off the block and off. They did it! Nebraska national champions! Nebraska's a national champion. Go celebrate.
Back to Husker Rewind with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens on 1499.3 KLIN.
Boy, the Danny Busboom era
He's going to be fun at Nebraska.
I think she's going to be a great recruiter and a great coach. Tough to follow a Hall of Famer like John Cook.
Well, it is, but the one thing is a ton of the success that John Cook had when Danny Busboom Kelly was here was because of her recruiting prowess. Yeah. And Jalen Reyes is every bit as good of a recruiter as she is. So let's see what the two of them can do.
I actually did a Nebraska-Texas A&M volleyball game for John Baylor, who had something going on in College Station. So I said I'd do a game for him. Having never, ever called a volleyball game. And you know what that's like, having never called hockey. You had to learn hockey on the fly.
Yep.
So I just listened to John Baylor tapes over and over and over. And I would say, block back, point, Nebraska, what just happened, Diane Mendenhall? It was my entire broadcast, just leaning on her, and she was great. But I got to meet Danny Busboom, who was probably 19 or 20 at that time, playing for Nebraska volleyball, and we all know the story. Almost left the team. John Cook wanted to move her from a setter, I believe, to a libero.
Yep.
And she said, no, I'm out. And I think there might have been some F-bombs included in that. And then she tucked her tail between her legs, came back and said, I'll do whatever you need to do. You need me to do. And they win a national title.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty cool story. Fred Hoiberg will not be winning a national title at Nebraska
basketball anytime soon.
Obviously he's had success at Iowa State. Nebraska, it's been tough to come by. 6 years so far, 37 and 82, 80 and 108 in 6 years, one tournament appearance, no wins. Obviously, he's going to be back. But I believe the seat should be a little warm going into next year. And I think he's got to hire a GM of some sort. Matt Rule just did that with Patrick Stewart. Came over from the Patriots. I don't know that Nebraska has had a GM or has a GM. I don't believe they do. Matt Abdelmassi did that, and he did most of the recruiting when he was here at Nebraska. It didn't work out in the first 3 years in particular, so he parted ways with Fred Hoiberg. Nebraska paid big money to certain guys that haven't been productive. So they have to be really wise, considering they probably don't have the money that Duke does to spend on basketball or Kansas or North Carolina or any of those teams. Bryce and Juwan obviously are going to be really difficult to replace. You're talking about, a guy that's in Bryce that's one of the all-time leading scorers. I think he's fourth now all-time. And only a couple of years he's done that, which is crazy. Averaging 20.1 points a game, just broke the school record for single season. I think he passed Jerry Fort and Tyronn Lue this week on the all-time charts. I think I read that. Of course, had 43 against Ohio State. Wasn't enough. Sam Hoiberg getting nothing. And he's one of the top 5 players on this team. I just think Nebraska, if you can't compete with Ohio State, Michigan, with money, and they can't, to pay football and basketball players, you're going to have to be better as far as scouting and evaluation. Nobody wanted Keisei Tamanaga coming out of junior college. Nobody wanted that guy. Josiah Alec, yes, he had a connection with his sister playing at Nebraska, playing volleyball, but I think he came from UNKC. Didn't he come from Kansas City?
And he was at New Mexico before that.
Yeah.
Or, no, he came from New Mexico. He was at
UMKC
before that.
and turned out to be a really good basketball player. Rink obviously was pretty highly recruited out of the portal, but he was a perfect fit. Derek Walker, just the same. I thought, if Jamarcus Russell and CJ Wilcher are on this team this year, and maybe they could have spent the money. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they had never a chance. They had no chance to sign CJ or Jamarcus to come back. But if there was any possible way, I think this is a tournament team for sure and comfortably in the NCAA tournament. I just think Fred has kind of figured it out on the defensive end. You have to be a tough-minded defensive team to win in this league. It started a few years back, and I think they've gotten that mentality. But you still have to have shooters. You have to have guys that can spread the floor and make the shots. When you have three guys that defenses won't cover in the Big Ten or anywhere because they can't shoot, then it puts too much pressure on guys like Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary. They just can't do it by themselves all the time.
Speaking of, Bryce became the 32nd player in Husker Hoops history to score over 1,000 points. So
is he top 10? No,
not even close.
For a 2-year period.
Okay, for a 2-year period, I don't have the breakdown of 2-year.
But single season, I know he's in there. Single season. I think I said all time in scoring, but single season scoring record, I think he's up there.
Because he's right at 20 points
20.1 a game, and they're playing more games now than they used to probably play back in the day. I'm sorry if I misspoke, but I know he's only been here 2 years, obviously, but I think for that 2-year stretch, he's way up there for Nebraska basketball. Anyway, they didn't get it done this year. It's just depressing for me to think that you have a player like Bryce Williams, who I think is a once-in-a-generation player. We both said that he's probably the best player for Nebraska basketball since Alex March. I wouldn't take James Palmer over him. I wouldn't take Pettaway. I wouldn't take Lance Jeter. I wouldn't take any guy that I've seen. Siobhan Shields, great player. Wouldn't take him. Keisei Tamanaga. No. I wouldn't take him. No. Not because, Bryce, it's more than just his scoring too. He can play the point, as we've seen the last 2 years. He can play the 2. He can play the 3. I think he's an NBA player. I really do. I know he might have to go through the G League and earn it, and he might be 27, 28 before he gets to the league. But I just think he's polished. And I know he's an older player. I think he's polished. I think he's got a great mid-range game. He'll have to improve his three-point shooting and his defense, as a lot of players do. But we've seen, I think, lesser talented play. Delano Banton's a good player, but I think Bryce is way better than him. I would Delano Banton's been playing. Roby is in the NBA. I think he's still playing in the NBA, or the G switches. He might have that two-way contract that a lot of players have. But I think he's a better player. Roby, obviously, really athletic, and that's the reason he got an NBA contract to start with. But I think somebody's going to give him a chance to play in the NBA, and I think he's going to be successful.
Isaac Copeland is one that comes to mind for me, right? Because Copeland had that ability to hit that 15-footer, and I always thought that would translate really well to the NBA, and he didn't even get a sniff. I think Bryce plays overseas. I don't know that he's an NBA player. I don't care wherever he goes. I think he's going to be tremendously successful if he gets to the NBA. Fantastic. The young man works his butt off. And the thing is, you can tell by the way he plays the game, he's got a high basketball IQ, but the amount of practice time that he puts in, I think, is a little bit more than like your average player as well, just because of the way he is able to do the things that he does at specific times in games. He got shut down today by Iowa, flat out. Yeah. I don't think he got a whole lot of help in the offensive sets from his teammates. But at the end of the day, Who knows? It's going to be
I don't
fun
think
to follow
he's
with professional.
like he's got a similar size to say Eric Piatkowski. Piatkowski's a better shooter overall. Had a long time in the NBA when he played 12, 13, I don't know, however long he played.
13 or 14 years.
Probably had the most successful NBA career of any Husker of all time.
Yeah.
Hoppen played a couple of years in the league. But I don't think he's that good. But I think he has the potential to get better. I mean, guys that when they're playing basketball and nothing but basketball all day, they tend to get better.
Yeah.
And Bryce has already got a better handle probably than Pike. He can get to the rim. He never misses free throws. He shoots 91% at the free throw line. Would like to have had him made that second one versus Ohio State. And maybe we're not talking about Nebraska missing the NCAA tournament. But I just think he's really, really good. Somebody mentioned this. If Nebraska was smart, I saw this on a message board, and sometimes I go through and read some of the comments. If Nebraska was smart, they would put more money into NIL than they do for basketball
than they do for football, percentage-wise.
Not overall, but percentage-wise, put more in for basketball than you do for football. And the argument is, from some basketball fans on these message boards, again, it's a message board. But if you get what Bo was telling us, two NBA talented players, give them, say, $3 million apiece, and you fill out your roster with solid players, then you're talking about a tournament team. And I do think it's easier to be good in basketball than it is in football.
But the problem with
you don't hear about Butlers in football or Gonzagas in football. It doesn't happen. San Diego State in football doesn't happen.
Yeah, but it's tough to give two players $3 million each when your current NIL budget is not $3 million.
Well, that's what I mean.
You need 6 to
that's
do
what
that,
I mean.
which means you need 7 to 8 to be able to fill out the roster.
What I'm saying,
I just don't see.
What I'm saying is Nebraska
doing
needs to go. If they were smart, they should go all in on basketball. That's the comment here.
Yeah.
You need to commit more, and I think that's part of my criticism. My criticism of Nebraska, the administration, is, do they really care? And I think they care, but I think in some ways we fans make it easier. Hey, why should I care that much? We're getting 15,700 every day, every time we tip it up at PVA, and it's not a great product. So why should we? That's the cynical me. I don't think they necessarily think that way, but I think it could be easy to think that way.
There's an interesting article from the World Herald's Tom Chattel, and to your point, the title of the article is essentially, what is Troy Dannon thinking right now? Because that's the guy that ultimately
he's got the right
to figure out, what can I give Fred? What tool does he not have?
Money.
Is it not enough
money?
Cash? Because we've got everything else.
I think I said this to Bo Reed, and I think it's true. I think both football and basketball need to get to the point where we know what everybody is spending.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And I've heard this argument with football. I wonder if it carries over to basketball. When Nebraska writes a check, because Matt Rule has said this, it's going to cash. Yeah. There are some universities that are writing a check and hoping they can raise the money for that check. Nebraska is well funded. They just, the Tom Osborne complex, $160 million, whatever it costs, was paid for. Boom. You had the donors. I don't know that you could do it now because of NIL and revenue sharing. It started before that. But Nebraska is well funded. They're not in debt like a lot of universities are. And maybe that will help them as we go farther into basketball going forward. That they'll actually have checks that they can give to players that will cash. And maybe we'll find out as soon as this year. It happened after the football season ended. Like players were saying, oh, yeah, had a great season. Yeah, you did. Now can I have my money? Oh, we don't have that. We don't have that money for you that we promised for you. I wonder if that happens a little bit in basketball as players kind of figure out who's actually giving you checks that actually cash and you can get money back for. Maybe Nebraska is one of those schools that can benefit from the football contract. I mean, the football contract is enormous. I wonder if it carries over to basketball. Or maybe you have to cut. Nobody wants to hear this, but maybe you have to cut a sport or two. They don't want to.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, realistically, bottom line is, if you want the big sports to be successful, that may be what has to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. Hey, side note, Nebraska basketball record was set against Ohio State. I forgot about saying this earlier in the show, but
there was a record.
There was against Ohio State. The 114 points that they scored was the most Nebraska basketball has ever scored in a loss on the road.
It would have been nice if they would have scored that, and it would have been a win on the road.
Yep, it would have been.
That would have been fun. This was fun. Thanks to our Mitch Sherman of the Athletic and Locked On Nebraska podcast. Bo Reed, boy, he hit it out of the park.
Bo Reed wants to fight Bryce Williams for the record.
His takes are fantastic.
He is great. And Steve Sipple, Husker on. Been fun to do it. We'll do it again next week because we do it every week from 5 to 7. It's called Husker Rewind. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. We'll see you next week. Bye.